I dropped a baby. But don't worry, I've been dropped many times as a baby. Look how I turned out. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, I'm SocioPsycho, and this is Mob Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at Lisa, created by Dingaling, available for PC, Mac, and Linux. This is a 16-bit stylish 2D side-screen scroller with a RPG Maker style of combat, and we're going to divulge into how well that actually handles. And we will begin in the options menu. Now the game is very simplistic when we go into the options menu. What we have is pretty much just rebindability of the controls, and as you can see, very basic elements in the graphic opportunity. You can input manually the type of screen resolution you want, so that's nice, but it doesn't really have a smooth in-game graphic setting, which can be a little frustrating, as getting back out and into the game is slightly annoying. The game unfortunately does not have a sound option, although the music in the game is one of the best features about the game. It really ties in well with the story. It would be nice to see that, but with the options menu being as simplistic as it is, what are you going to do? The game has also been running at 60 frames per second with no tearing, clipping, or crashing. I have not had any performance issues whatsoever in that regard. And when we jump into the actual game, what we're going to talk about first is the interface. The interface of the game is very simplistic. As you can see, it is a 2D screen side scroller, and you move around with your main character as the story progression, which is actually quite good, to recapture and save a female who you raised as a daughter in this world where the world is apocalyptic and women are in very short supply. So your daughter was stolen from you, and it's up to you to go through different fight scenes and different areas and try to find out where she is and who is holding her, and you gather different companions as you progress through the game. So it definitely has this progressional level base of companions and yourself as you progress through. As you can see, different items which heal for different amounts as you would expect through the game, whether it be spell power that you're recouping to cast spells, or just items to recover health in combat. There are the basic layout. Now if you do come across a weapon, they do not work as a across the board type deal, and it's the same thing with armor. The different characters have their own different classes upon what items they can equip. Your main character is more of a martial artist, hand-to-hand combatant, not going to be wielding a gun or a dagger or something like that. The skills are pretty much, as you progress, they give you these different skills, whether it be a fireball or machine gun fists, whatever it be physically or melee. It's nice they have a slight variation, as some enemies in the game do vary upon the damage that they intake. Some creatures will be immune to physical attacks, so you'll need to use something special or magical in order to defeat them. The changing of gear, I like how they have the ease of access of understanding what your gear changing does. On the right side, it will show what you have and what you'll gain or lose by the new item. Now I don't have anything to really show you a direct impact upon that, but it's a very simplistic system, and even if you're confused, you have optimized. So the system and control of how you get through is pretty simplistic. We just cleared and we hit optimize, so there's no problem in that regard. And it's the same way for all the characters. The equipment and the stats to just kind of see where your characters are and everything else. And that is pretty much the simplicity of that stage. The interface is sleek, it's easy, it's not a problem at all in any regard. Now this also continues over when you get into a fight. As you can see here, you pick what your characters will do first. You have your standard attack, your skills, or your guard. Guard will mean that you'll take less damage overall, and items obviously will vary from the different amount of items that you can use. Say someone in your party's down, you need to resurrect them, you can use an item or just heal. So we'll go with a basic attack style for him so we can show you a little bit about that. Other characters will have certain different attributes that they can do. His spell power goes into storytelling, which can either give bonuses or negativities to enemies or allies. So it's very simple to ensure that you understand what you're using where, as the combat will then automatically engage itself if it is a special attack. The one little interesting choice is a combinational attack, because we went with a base attack, and you kind of choose which movements you do, and those movements will go into combos if you get the right combination of letters. And as you saw there, I did no damage to him, meaning that he is physically resistant, so he needs magic. So if we use actual magic against him, we should do more damage. You also have a chance to run away, which is not a guarantee, and it might be something that you need in order to survive, to push forward. Now, why the escape button is very important in the actual explorational element of the game is because when we talk about level design, the level design of the world is very convoluted. The way the design of the world is, it feels fragmented, yes, and because the theme of the world is a apocalyptic, chaotic experience where it's the turmoil after World War III type feeling of desolate and uncivilized, a little bit of confusion and a little bit of disorientation upon where you're going is good. The problem with the actual gameplay of this is that the levels are split so far apart, and the further you actually progress through the game, the wider the gaps in between the save points become. So it means that you'll be ending up spending more time as you progress through the game to go back to a save location in order to not lose all the progress that you've made. This doesn't really become too big of an issue in the beginning of the game, but like I said, as you progress forward, it really becomes detrimental. Now, with this also coupled with the fact that the game is very grindy. Unlike certain RPG Maker games where you kind of feel like you have a world to explore and the combat initiations are a little randomized, so if you want to farm for experience or money, you have that option along your way to your main goal, where here it doesn't randomize so much as you are aware of certain locations where enemies will respawn, but most encounters are one-time deals. But when you have these encounters that happen and the level of difficulty just continues to climb, it means that you have to go back to those respawning areas to really grind out in order to get forward and go to the next location. It does not respect your time, unfortunately, in the level design of itself. And that also couples in exactly with the combat. The combat is very repetitive. Yes, you level up decently. Yes, your characters do feel like they're gaining strength, but the enemies require you to grind. They require you to continue to just put in more and more time than you necessarily should, as the world is not an open feeling of explorational madness. It's more of a, well, now I went to zone A, that's cleaned out, I didn't see where I needed to go, I went to zone B, there was some stuff there, I did it, some stuff respawns, so when I go to C, C's too hard, let me go back to B for a little bit. It sort of has this lack of fluidity in the combat. And what happens, even though I have a difficulty setting earlier on to easy or hard, or normal or hard, what happens is you still need to farm, you still need to backtrack. This tied in with the long area in betweens of the save points means that you're putting yourself more at risk. So if you spend an hour grinding and you're returning to a save point and you die for some reason or somehow or an ambush, you just lost an entire hour. There is too much variable in the uncomfortability when it comes to actual progress that the combat or the level design do not help you or help the flow in any way. So at the end of the day, even though we haven't really covered story that much, and I will admit that this game has a really strong opening story. It has a very strong slap in the face, here's what's going on, emotional connection with your character. And that's definitely nice to see. In the beginning of the game, you feel and understand the reasons of why your character is doing what he's doing in the world. And it's not just about seeing your character as, oh, well, this is nice, but wanting to take his quest in as your own. And that is what is just beautiful about the game. The music in the game as well is just fantastic. The music in the game really sets the atmosphere to some bizarre unification in the dark humor of the storytelling. But unfortunately, with the increasingly amount of grindiness and travel time as you progress through the game, unless you really enjoy the style of combat and have the time to devote to this game, you're going to feel frustrated about it, which is just really unfortunate because it has such a great atmosphere. So when it comes down to it, am I able to recommend the game? And I feel like yes, the story was so good and the music kept pace. But if you do not enjoy this style of 2D, if you do not enjoy the simplification of the jumping mechanics where you don't really have platform-to-platform jumping, or you don't have a lot of time to devote to something like this, then I would say stay away. If the combat interests you, then I think you'll be okay in your purchase of this game, given the fact that it does have a darker sense of humor, theme, adultness to it. There's even a little choice options as you progress through the game upon where you choose yourself over your companions. And whether you choose your companions to sacrifice yourself, these choices are manifested physically and visually to your player as you progress forward, which is nice. It has a consequential reaction to the environment that keeps with its theme of apocalyptic. It's just the longevity and the slight annoyance, because all it takes is you playing for a half hour or an hour or longer. Your power could go out or you could die in the game, whatever, and that's it. So very not necessarily reluctantly, but carefully, I recommend this game. You really have to be sure whether or not that you like this style of movement, combat, and visual. Otherwise, you will be easily disappointed. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been SocioPsycho and this is Mob Reviews. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I'll see you next time.